What's up, y'all? We are here to review The Real Housewives of Atlanta, Season 15, Episode 8. I am trying my best to get into the gig, y'all. It's late. I should have been did these videos, but it was Pride Weekend in New York, so you already know what that gave. If you don't know, check the Twitter. It's just all the things are going on. My hair isn't even laying down. Like, it's hot and humid as hell in New York. So it's just a lot going on. So I'm doing the best that I can with what I got. We are here. We're going to review the episode. It was a good episode. I do have some things that I want to chat about in terms of like the filler episode of it all. But before we get into that, I do want to say I noticed like late last week that there was like a spike in my subscribers on YouTube and then also in my views for the last review that I did for Atlanta. So I do want to thank y'all for that. I did peep. I was nervous though. I'm like, was there like a Kim Kardashian Ray J of it all? Like, what was the tea, you know? But that was exciting to see. So I do want to say thank y'all for that. And I also have been receiving a lot of like acknowledgement and stuff, like, you know, outside of the YouTube of it all. And yeah, you know, I'm having fun, so I'm glad you guys are enjoying it. So I did want to say that. So thank you guys for that. It's almost been 2 months since I started my channel, so it's exciting. So yeah, but let's get into it. We start the episode with Drew, and basically she's having this conversation. We're getting to the point where like they did the preview of like her having a conversation with Ralph and they're getting into this thing with her sister. So when I watched the preview on Twitter, like initially, y'all already know my frustrations with that. Like I was just kind of like, why didn't we get this type of tea earlier? Because obviously Drew has been on the season now. What, this like a third season? So it's just like, why didn't we get this tea about her sister before? Because that's personal story and that's stuff that we need. But as I watched the episode, I wasn't too upset about it anymore. Like, you know, we get her talking to Ralph about it, and obviously the beef is that the sister called Ralph controlling and manipulative. I think we all share the same sentiment. It's been all over the Twitter, and it's just like Ralph is controlling and manipulative. So Drew's sister clocked that tea. Good for her. But, you know, I guess, you know, as a result of her doing that, Ralph didn't want her around, banned her from the house, which is such a strong term. Such a strong verb. But okay, he banned her from the house. She hadn't been to that house yet, so it was a big deal that she hadn't been able to visit that house. She had never seen it. And she was also going through some mental health issues, so she just had not been around. But obviously, she's a very significant part of Drew's life, both personal and professional. So it's interesting to hear that personal story, and it's fun. The other noteworthy thing was obviously like when Drew was trying to get Alexa to play her song, Alexa was not giving that. Like Alexa could not find the receipts.
I couldn't find Already Known by Juice WRLD, but here's...
I did not say that. Juice WRLD. Why should be playing me like this? Alexa.
And I too struggle with that because I have the Alexa in my bathroom when I'm taking a shower and I want to hear my tunes. And Alexa never is trying to listen to me. I did feel some type of way because it was a shady edit, obviously, and it's like they're trying to be shady and, you know, show that like Drew's song is whatever. I don't want to put a narrative out there, but at the end of the day, let's keep it true T. They're trying to be shady and act like Drew's song is not like, you know, popping like that, and the girls they don't really know Drew. You know what I'm saying? So it was funny, but I'm relating it back to Candace from Potomac because it's the same producers or whatever the heck. I don't know about editing. I don't know how that thing works. I'm just here on YouTube. But they didn't do that to Candace. Like, they weren't shady to Candace like that. So I don't know why there's shade to Drew. And I don't know if they think it's just like fun shade. And I don't know if Drew cares. But I noted it and I thought that it was some weird behavior. Like, don't do that to that girl. But it was funny. I'm going to say that. But at the end of the day, it was shady at the same time. Maybe that's fun shade. Is that fun shade? It's funny, but it's like, ooh, girl, don't do that. I don't know. Whatever, so that happened. But yeah, I'm excited to get into this story. I am. Like, I'm invested in this story for Drew, and I want to hear more about it. I don't know that it has anything to do with this pending divorce that it feels like they're attempting to foreshadow between Drew and Ralph, but it was interesting to hear about. Part of me still is kind of like, I wish we had heard about it before, but everything has a time and a place, and everything happens for a reason. So I guess if it fits on this season, then it fits on this season. And then I do also feel like, you know, we had these beefs that started the season out for the last 7 episodes. Marlo versus everybody, essentially, and everybody being mad at Kandi because Kandi is Kandi, clock that T. But now we're getting personal story and they're trickling things in, so it doesn't feel like we're just talking about the same thing all season. So I appreciate that and I liked it. We then get to where we're talking about Sheree and She by Sheree. She was in some type of setup with She by Sheree on the wall. Kind of looked like it was a fireplace, or maybe I was just seeing things. Again, I watched this episode at like 1 in the morning when I came in from Pride, so baby, just imagine. But I took some notes, so we know what we're talking about. Kind of. Yes, it looked like it was like a She by Sheree on the fireplace. So I was wondering, like, is this a section of her house, or does she have office space, or did she put on the extra effort to get something that looked like office space for the sake of the show? All of those things, fine, cool, whatever, Sheree, cute. But I was just wondering that to myself. But the key thing from that is that the producers asked, which I kind of feel like was going through my head as well, like, you know, have you received any profit from She by Sheree? And Sheree kind of played on the thing where, you know, obviously with business, you spend money to make money. So you know, spend money. And then at the end of the day, you either don't make enough money back, you ended up spending more than you made, you break even. So it's kind of like I spent this much and I made just about as much, so I'm at a zero. Or you're making profit, which means that you're making more than you've spent. You're getting a return on your investment. So, you know, they asked that question, and Sheree kind of played on the thing of, well, she stuttered first. Well, she kind of muted first, and then she stuttered. Because she always stutters. It's kind of part of her vernacular. And then she said, well, you know, I haven't necessarily gotten, I think these were the words that she used too, which I was like, girl, you for real? She said, I haven't gotten to, and I'm struggling to say it. She said, I haven't gotten to the profit part of it because I've spent, you know, and then I think she said, you know, because I've spent so much money on it. And it's like, it feels like Sheree is just always so committed to proving to us that she has the money to spend, as opposed to pushing that forward. Like, I kind of want to dive into that a little bit, but I don't want to dive into it too much. All I'm going to say is we all got the money to spend some way or another. You know, some of us have credit cards, you know what I'm saying? So the money is there. But I mean, is there a return of the money? I guess. So that's what the producers was trying to figure out. And Sheree was playing on that. So whatever, girl. You got the money to spend. We get it. Cool. But it's kind of like what Karen did on Real Housewives of Potomac when she was like, you got to make millions to owe millions. And it's like, girl, that ain't true. Like, I mean, like, why y'all trying to prove to us that y'all got coins? What are you doing with those coins? But whatever. So even before they got to that question, I had noted, because she was making baby clothes. And I don't know much about She by Sheree. I'm going to be honest. I ain't went on the website to try to buy anything. I've been on the website just because I've heard that it wasn't working. So I check it to see if it's working every now and then, which I checked last night and it was working. Took a while to load. Could have been my internet. Could have been Sheree. But it is up. But I was wondering, like, why are you making baby clothes? Because I don't feel like I've seen the girls prancing around in She by Sheree. You know what I'm saying? That doesn't mean the business isn't doing well. That doesn't mean that the girls aren't buying it. But I don't get the impression that it's doing fantastic. So I just didn't think that it made sense that she was going to this next step of making baby clothes. But I'm gonna mind my business because I don't work for She by Sheree. But I thought that was interesting. And then that question came up, right? Where it's like, well, are you even making profit? And she's like, no. So then I'm like, okay, so obviously it's going to cost more money to produce baby clothes. So why would you spend more money and go more into the alleged negative, I'll say, because I don't know if she's in the negative, but if she ain't making no profit, she got to be in the negative, allegedly. But, you know, why would you spend more money if you're not really getting no money? Especially if you ain't selling the clothes to adults, why are you trying to appeal to kids? If the adults are not buying She by Sheree for themselves, why would they buy it for their kids or anybody else's kids? I mean, I don't know the thought process behind that. I wish that she would have gone into it more as opposed to like relating it to the fact that she's a grandma now. Like, I guess that was an easy pull, but it didn't necessarily connect for me. But okay, girl, good luck. So, then we get to Sanya. And I had some good notes for Sanya this episode. She gets to Marlo's house and she was trying. You know what I'm saying? She was trying to hold Marlo accountable. I don't know if this is because that's how Sanya regularly is and that's just something that she was going to do, or if it has anything to do with the conversation she had with Kandi, where Kandi was like, "You're riding the fence." Whatever the reasoning was, I'm glad that she was trying. To me, it felt like the same thing they said about Drew when Drew brought up the incident with Kandi and she used the word incident. It felt like the same thing to me. Like, it felt like Sanya was approaching it kind of passively and not trying to use any trigger words, which I guess is fine because I didn't have any issue with it when Drew did it to Kandi. And I can expect, trying to deliver the message a little bit more softer to somebody that's your friend or friend in this case. But also, I just thought that was funny because it's like, what I'm saying, you're being very careful with your words. It was pretty obvious that she was. But I'm going to give her the brownie points for attempting to, tiptoeing into holding Marlo accountable essentially for taking it over the edge when it goes to the other ladies. Basically how she worded it was, they don't get the Marlo that I see. And it's like, I still don't know why Sanya thinks she knows Marlo so well after 5 days versus the other ladies knowing Marlo so well after a decade, but that's her business. But, whatever, she tried. I'm going to keep saying that because that's the best I've got from Miss Sanya. And then I will also say, to her credit, Marlo just didn't take the accountability that she should have taken. Sanya threw it out there. She said it out there, and Sanya said, "Well, no, I hear you," which was good, but I'll have to disagree, which is good, great communication. But the example she used just didn't make any sense. She's like, "I'll have to disagree because Kandi said F my flowers," and it was just like, those things don't go together. But cool, fine, whatever, let's move past it. So I'm going to assess that scene as Sanya, although she was tiptoeing, was trying to hold Marlo accountable. Marlo blocked it. Fine, points to Sanya. I think those are fireworks outside. My window is open because I can't have my air on. I don't want to make a lot of noise, but then I'm in Brooklyn, so it's noise. So maybe my rationale is the same as Sheree, Sanya, and Marlo. The biggest thing for me this episode, and it's kind of weird that it's in the middle of my notes because it's like, dang, did a lot of stuff happen after this? But whatever. The big thing was like the link up between Kandi and Sheree. And there's been a lot of chatter both on like the internet and like Speak on It and Carlos King's review and even DJ Richie Sky. I've been watching all the things I typically do. And they basically were talking about the difference between what Kandi was wearing and what Sheree was wearing. I didn't think too much into it, but the way that they analyzed it, and especially Kandi because she has firsthand knowledge, she was there, it was interesting. And basically they were saying, they were supposed to be working out, I guess, taking a walk or whatever. And Kandi had on her jogging suit and her Yeezys. And Sheree had on a fur, which I don't really live for. It's not my fashion choice, but Sheree loves a fur. It's so cool. And a heel, which was cute or whatever. And the wig was big wigging. Like, it was giving me big wig. It was a lot of wig. The wig was wearing her. It was a cute wig, but it was wearing her. But that was the thing. I guess that was the thing for me. All of those things were wearing her. So I wasn't necessarily thinking about the like over analyzing the effect of it all or them wearing different things. I was just like, why is that wig and that fur wearing Sheree like that? But whatever. So they get to their conversation. I do want to take a step back too, because I was saying I do like how Sheree is taking like the OG role that I want to see her take, meaning she's gonna be like Carlos King calls it the anchor to the group. So she's gonna be like the just kind of the one that brings the girls together, so to speak, or kind of wrangles the group, so to speak. I'm not finding the greatest employment summary of what she's going to be doing, but I think you guys get what I'm talking about. I say that to say I like that she reached out to Kandi and initiated this conversation, and I like that they were able to go back and give us context and show, when they had the Gucci lunch or brunch or whatever the heck it was, she did pull Kandi technically aside and was like, we do need to have a chance to talk. So I like that she was able to do that. So they get there. I like that they did the how are yous and blah, blah, blah. And then she's like, well, now let's get into the thing of it all. Fine. It felt authentic, and it felt like the way that conversation should go. But then we get to the conversation itself. It was so much going on. I really wanted to go back and watch it because it was a lot, and it was given the almost like the Marlo and Sheree thing that happened. Like, it was just a lot. Because Sheree talks fast, and when she's getting into it, she's getting into it. And Kandi was just kind of like, girl, every time Sheree tried to shade her, she was, but I'm getting ahead. So, they get into basically what's bothering Sheree, and what's bothering her is that Kandi made some jokes about her business. I'm going to say that I see both sides. I get Sheree having a problem with that, of course. But also, these are universal jokes, right? So these are jokes that we've all told, that we sit down at the dinner table and we talk about, or we go to Thanksgiving dinner and we kiki with our cousins about. Like, I've already said this, like, Sheree is a read, and She by Sheree is a read. That doesn't mean that they're not nice joggers. It doesn't mean that Sheree is not a nice woman, but she's a read at the end of the day. And I think we all know for the past 1,300 years that, She by Sheree not coming out, and the fashion show without fashions, and the website being down, like, it's all a thing, right? To Sheree's credit, should somebody that's supposed to be your friend or your mutual or whatever, as the kids say, should they be joining in on that fun? That's arguable. I will say that. I don't really know 100% where it started with Kandi. What I will say is I know that Sheree obviously was talking mess about Kandi with Marlo last season, and that, that led into this is what I remember in terms of where it started with Kandi. And then that led into the reunion where they talked about it, and there was a segment about it where there was a lot of BS. So then Kandi spoofed it, where she dressed up as the girls and did the voiceovers of the reunion, and she did that and made light of it. And I think that started more chatter about the She by Sheree thing. And then, to my understanding and recollection, Kandi did a speak on it because the girls were beefing about the spoofs that she was doing. And she spoke about She by Sheree, and she was just like, her opinion was that, the season came out and she talked about She by Sheree, and then the reunion came out, and she was, I think that Sheree had said by the time the reunion aired, She by Sheree will be out, and it wasn't out. And then, obviously the website wasn't working, and that was headline news. It was everywhere, right? And so Kandi was speaking on that. And I guess that's what bothers Sheree. If I'm wrong, then I can be wrong, but that's the gist of it. It's not like it's a big essential argument anyway. It's really all stupid at the end of the day. But, that's my understanding of it. But I do like to give credit where credit is due, and I do want to know where things came from. I do like continuity, and I do like to know cause and effect. So that's why I'm discussing it. But that's my understanding of how it happened. So at the end of the day, I do feel like Sheree started the shade. But I guess I do also see her point where it's like, you're supposed to be my friend, and regardless of the fact that this was a universal joke and it was table talk, I just don't feel like my friend should have joined in on that. So fine, I'll give her that. But even in her having that conversation, she gave typical Sheree, which a lot of people would, so I'm not going to bash her for that. She was trying to throw shade at Kandi and her businesses and different things, and she had some cute potential reads in there, and it was some nice receipts, and she was touching on some things. But like I said, Kandi was given this, you know what I'm saying? And Kandi was like, girl, come on now. Like, she's a tourist like myself, so it's like, girl, we real quick, we know what's going on, come on now. And she brought up the health inspection stuff. I'm going to touch on it in categories. She brought up the health inspection stuff for Kandi, and like the incident, and that she had gone, let's do proper grammar, she had gone to Kandi's restaurant OLG, and she waited for 3 hours and they were out of food. right? Okay, so let's talk about the restaurant thing. Kandi had this show called Kandi and the Gang. Just came out last year. And it was about OLG. And I think the key of the episode was like the foolishness that happens at the restaurant and how the staff is, they're they weren't really, it was chaos at the end of the day. Like that was the gist of the show, right? So Sheree trying to, and I don't know the timeline of these things, right? But Sheree trying to throw shade, like I said, right? She had a potential read there, but Kandi has already shown us the operations, the inner operation, and made light of it. It's a reality TV show, so she's made light of it on television. And then even when she did the speak on it about it yesterday, she was showing a clip, right? So Sheree had said that she waited 3 hours for her food. Kandi was showing a clip from Kandi and the Gang where her hostess was at the hostess stand, and there was a long line lined up out of OLG, which it typically is from my experience when I've gone. And she took a call, and somebody was like, come downstairs real quick. Like somebody else on the staff, like, come downstairs. And she was like, well, I have a long line here. And they were like, yeah, but I need you downstairs. And she was like, okay, here I come. And then she was just like, here's the QR code, have them scan the QR code and we'll figure it out. So that was funny. So like they've made light of stuff like that, right? So the read didn't necessarily land on the restaurant for me. And they also talked about on the show, they talked about the health code violation stuff. They talked about that it was chaos at that restaurant. So those reads didn't necessarily land as it pertains to Kandi's restaurant. She also talked about Kandi's clothing store, and she said, I bought a shirt from there, and, I could only wash it once. And I get that. That's irritating. Like, when you buy cheaply made clothes and you wash them and that's it, you know what I'm saying? That is irritating. But Kandi, hit that too. And she's like, well, first of all, at least you could get the shirt. And second of all, I didn't make that shirt. I didn't manufacture that shirt. I didn't sit down and sew that shirt. You know what I'm saying? We sell other people's clothes. So take that up with the person that made that shirt. So, it wasn't working out for Sheree. But all in all, I think that the interaction, it was funny. It was fun. I enjoyed it. It was back and forth. I would watch it again. It's one of those, like, how we go on YouTube and we watch the beefs and we do the Nene versus Portia, or like the Kenya versus Phaedra. Like, I feel like that's something that I will watch. And Kandi even had her at the end of the day, because then Sheree tried to bring it and she's like, and I had my store, and Kandi was like, yeah, you had your store. Like,
All that brand that you bought there.
Honey, I used to own a store too. I used to own a store too.
Yeah,
so I
used
do
to.
understand.
you don't have a store anymore. I forgot Sheree had a store. And then even when she gave context as to what, I'm still thinking like, what store is she talking about? When she gave context, she's talking about that store that she mentioned in season 1. So it's like, Sheree, you didn't even have the store on the show. Like, you got rid of that store prior to us even meeting you. So, look, you know what I'm saying? So, and even Kandi said on her speak on it, like, she was holding back a little bit. Obviously, there was more that she said, and it was edited out. But she was holding back a little bit because she didn't want to go in on Sheree like that. And I'm like, girl, stop holding back. Like, read these girls, girl, into the ground. Because Sheree was trying to read her. That's how it happened. I know that Kandi was getting a lot of slack for the she by SHEIN joke. But again, that was a table talk joke. Like, we all know that joke. Somebody else came up with that joke. That didn't come from Kandi. She just repeated it. You know what I'm saying? She joined in on the fun. Which, again, is arguable as to whether she should have done that. But I feel like, similar to what happened during this sit-down, universally, Sheree started with her. So it's like, girl, you're shading me and talking about me, doing things in locker rooms and sleeping around. So now I'm going to shade you with a joke that's around there about you. Like, you know what I'm saying? So I get both sides. I do. I'm more so leaning towards the Kandi side of things, but I get both sides. And, at the end of the day, all this stuff that's out about Sheree's business is out because of Sheree. And it's out because of the people that Sheree has done business with and allegedly not paid, right? So that's her issue. Nothing that Kandi joins in on that's already existing, I don't agree that it's going to affect her business. I just don't. If that's how she feels, then fine. But I don't think that it's coming from Kandi. It's already out there. There's nothing that Kandi, unless she knows more, there's nothing that Kandi can say about She by Sheree that we don't already have right here, and that we're already tweeting for the last 15 years. So Sheree needs to kind of get over it. We then get to this scene with Kandi and Todd, and the only thing that I noted, I think, again, it was a nice thing. Like, this is thing that, like, they shade Kandi for it, where it's like, they're like, she likes women, and they have this sex dungeon and things like that. And basically, they were talking about this sex scene in Todd's movie, where Kandi would have to be with a woman, and she's like, I don't want this narrative out. Like, I don't want to be typecasted that, you know, I'm the one that turns women out. And Todd made this joke where he was like, art imitates life.
She didn't want to be typecast as the
As the girl to be turning people out.
art imitates life.
Whatever.
And she was like, whatever. Like, she took the joke. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, all this shade that they throw at Kandi, like, it just doesn't land. But I thought that was funny. We also we're at Drew's video shoot. Nothing really noteworthy here. Again, I don't really live for the shade of it all. Let that girl do what she got to do. And if you ain't finna listen to the song, don't listen to the song. I saw the video on YouTube earlier, and I went right past it. I like Drew, but I ain't really trying to watch it. So fine, whatever. You know, but I did think it was funny. I thought it was funny when they were saying that the video was low budget, and when Kenya said it was giving a low budget Beyonce blow video. I thought that was funny. Sorry, whatever. But the key thing here is that her sister was there, and you know, she got emotional basically watching this full concept be realized, because she had been like, that's her sister, so she had been there since the inception of kind of just like knowing that Drew wanted to do music and work and do her thing. And she's excited to see that. And I think that she's excited to be a part of it, right? And so she got emotional. And I like to see that Ralph embraced her and they had that moment. And then obviously, you know, her mom saw that, so she got emotional. So that's something that I like to see again about personal story. Something I thought was interesting, Carlos King mentioned that he wished that the sister and Ralph had like a sit down and not just that little kind of drive-by type of thing. I don't agree with that, just because it kind of feels overproduced, right? Like, I don't know that they were in a space to have a conversation, or that they would have even had a conversation anyway. So at that point, it feels like the show is being overproduced. I'm glad they kind of just let that happen authentically. And we got a preview for next week's episode. The sister's back around. So, you know, I think that they may have an opportunity to have a sit down. But even if they didn't, I don't care. Like, I don't need that. I like the personal story, and I think I'm getting what I need from it. The last big thing is Marlo's date. This is something else that I liked in terms of personal story. Like, I do want to see Marlo date. I mean, I don't really live for Marlo, but I do like the idea of her dating, as fake as it may be. I don't know. But, you know, I do like the idea of her dating, and I do want to see her outside of the persona of being a hater, a Kandi hater, at the end of the day. I mean, the big influential thing was she was doing really good, honestly, though. And I think even when she was in the car and she decided to call Drew, for whatever reason she decided to call her, I kind of want to go back and dissect that. But for whatever reason, you know, it was just like, it was fake, though, at the end of the day. You know, she called Drew, and I think that they were having a good conversation. At the end of the day, Drew was being very articulate and, you know, letting her know how she felt, right? And, you know, I think that they were keeping it real, and it felt like a real conversation that you would have, right? And, you know, she was just letting her know, like, you know, well, I'm glad that we can have a conversation, but we do have some issues that we need to sort out. And I need to understand why you were coming at me like that. Like, I don't think that you were being cool. And again, this brought me back to the scene with Sanya and Marlo. And I'm like, I wonder if this was on purpose from production, because if it was, then good for them. But, you know, it felt like Drew was trying to hold her accountable, not in a rah-rah way, and it wasn't like they were fighting or anything like that, but she was just like, girl, like, you know, we're not going to just brush past this, which is what Marlo typically does. Like, she does something, she lashes out, and then she wants to brush past it and push it on the rug, and she's like, no, girl, like, there has to be some discussion about this, and we have to figure out what's going on. Like, I think I deserve an apology, which I would agree. And I don't think it's a problem asking for that, especially in the way that Drew was doing it. It just didn't feel combative. For whatever reason, Marlo blocked it again, and she didn't want to take accountability, and she hung up. And then she proceeds to read Drew, which I just thought was so lame. It just didn't make any sense. Like, there was no connection. There was no reason for her to even be that turned up. I think it just kind of showed more how disingenuous Marlo is. And, you know, somebody tweeted, you know, she only called Drew for a moment, which I hadn't subscribed to, because I typically don't watch the show thinking that it's going to be overproduced, like, because I don't want to see that. So I don't watch reality TV thinking that it's going to be overproduced and thinking that it's going to be inauthentic. I'm watching it because I enjoy it, and I want to see, like I always say, character dynamics and character arcs and personal story. So I wasn't looking at it that way, but it does make me wonder, like, well, then why did she call Drew? if she was going to call her fake and talk about her body and talk about how Ralph doesn't want her and all these weird things that she was saying. It was so disconnected from me. So it does make me question why she even called her in the first place. But it was like Marlo was doing really well. And I feel like that conversation was going really well. And then it just stopped for whatever reason. And then the driver's like, he can't. So I'm like, I hope he's not close with her and didn't hold her accountable. Because it just feels like she doesn't have anybody around her that holds her accountable. And that's her issue. But I will say, like I said, I'm going to give Sanya the point. I'm going to give Drew the point. They tried to hold her accountable in a nice way. And she blocked it. So that's her fault. Lastly, we get the date with Marlo. It was fun to see. Like I said, like I liked it. I honestly wouldn't mind watching Marlo just date and not be in the mix with the ladies and not be weird and do all the weird stuff that she does. Like, I will be fine with that. So I enjoyed it. I did wonder, was it a coincidence that they, linked her up on this blind date with somebody else that had been arrested? I don't know. But, I was wondering that. But yeah, it was fun. Whatever. It was longer than it needed to be. And I don't know that it needed to end out the episode, but it was fun. And I'd watch that, honestly. Like, that type of Marlo where she's kind of just, like, in her own element, it seems, and doing her own thing, I'll take. She still hasn't figured out how to be a part of this ensemble cast, but whatever, I'll take that. Two noteworthy things, though, with Speak on It. And if you didn't watch it, like I say, I would always watch Speak on It because it just gives so much more context. Kandi was even talking about Sheree's website crashing, and she was just kind of explaining, first of all, nobody ever believed that. Okay, I'm just going to say it. Like, even without the context and even without the explanations, we ain't even got to go into that. When Sheree even first said that the website crashed, nobody believed it. Sheree be lying at the end of the day. So, I mean, nobody believed that. But Kandi gave some context, and she's like, girl, like, if the website had crashed, you wouldn't have been able to access it either. And you're on there posting notices like, oh, well, our website has crashed. How does your website crash? And you're able to get on said website and say, hey, we're crashed. I don't know that I would call that a crash. But I could be wrong. I don't know. I ain't the website. So I don't know. So maybe that's what happened, but nobody, even without that, like I said, I don't care what the explanation is. I don't believe it, and I never will. That website did not crash. And then secondly, also another interesting thing brought up by Kandi. Didn't consider this either. Maybe I don't have high analytical skills for these TV shows, but I didn't think about this. If the storyline is that Kandi doesn't share and that they had to activate Kandi and blah, 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 why is it that we had this lingering big storyline about Sheree's website crashing and the clothes not being up there and the She by SHEIN and the her not paying the designer? Like, that story has so many levels, and it occurred right before they filmed this season. So in that event, why is it that nobody brought it up? Marlo, producers, you know what I'm saying? So it feels like everybody was giving Sheree grace, but she's beefing about these small jokes. Like, so much more could have been said, Sheree, baby. Like, when you brought up that stuff with Kandi, please be quiet. When you brought up that stuff with Drew earlier in the season about the jokes she made, please be quiet. Like, there were much bigger, deeper things that could have been said, and nobody said anything about it. So I'm glad that Kandi brought that up on Speak on It, and it really made me think, like, oh yeah, like, nobody is saying anything about that. Like, you walked on episode 1 with Martell. So, but, that was the episode. I thought it was a good episode. I mentioned earlier, like, filler episode of it all, because I was watching it to see what's here, right? And I think that there's always this argument of nothing happened this episode. Like, a lot of people say that. Even when I talk to friends, they'll be like, oh, that episode was boring. Nothing happened. And I'm always like, but what does that mean? Right? Like, nobody threw a drink. Nobody swung off anybody. Nobody argued, nobody, what does it mean that nothing happened? Because I would just have to heavily disagree with that. I think this episode, we got a lot of dynamics between the cast. We got a lot of dialogue. We got some disagreements. So we got some personal story. We got some new personal story. So I would love to understand the very vague argument of nothing happened. But I disagree. And so, as a result, I don't feel like this was a filler episode. It wasn't the most exciting episode. Sure, I can give you that. But it also didn't feel like a filler episode. And I think that it was the perfect type of episode to follow the craziness that we got from the last few episodes, and then leading up to this little 1 week break that we're getting, and then we come back and we get to see some familiar faces, right? We get to see the OGs, we get to see the Kim, the Deshaun, the Lisa Wu, and then we also get to see Cynthia Bailey, I think. So, I think that it was the perfect type of episode, and I actually enjoyed it. It was a nice watch for me, and I was entertained. So, let me know what you guys think. I've seen you guys commenting, and I really do appreciate that as well. That's been fun. So please continue to comment. Let me know what you guys think about the episode. This is one in particular that I do want to know what people thought about. Like, what do you think about the filler episode argument? To be honest, like, because I just wouldn't call it a filler episode. I wish I knew what I would call it, but I wouldn't say it's a filler. So that's kind of where I stand on it. So let me know what you guys think, and I will see you in the next one.